at the Garden of Eden tonight, knowing a place in Super Rugby's big dance is just one win away.
That, in a nutshell, is what the Blues have been doing all season. Peter Becker with the pass, and Clark is in. The Blues are into the final.
Welcome to Wellington. Well, for the first time in 8 years, we're back in the capital for semi-final footy.
That's right. Still going. Oh, what a pass. What a great pass. It's all over the place here. Sajinta lining it up for Jacobson. Hands it off for Ratama. They've done it again.
You want to talk about a sensational start.
Lakai as it goes south. Lakai stretching. And Peter Lakai's in. Looking to get over the top of advantage. Coming wide and the try is scored. And for the fifth time in their history, the Chiefs are going to the grand final next week.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening, welcome into the breakdown. And then there were two, the Blues and the Chiefs in the grand final of Super Rugby, but there has been some terrible news on the injury front for the Chiefs and for the All Blacks with Samisoni Taukei'aho. We'll talk about that during the program, and we've got a fantastic interview coming up with the All Blacks assistant coach Leon McDonald ahead of their squad announcement in a week's time. But joining us on the panel, Justin Marshall in Sir John Kirwan's seat this week, Mills Moleina and Jeff Wilson. Where's JK when you need him? Just to rub it in a little bit?
Well, when I went into the green room, there was a Blues jersey sitting in my area, and I think he was trying to put me in this seat and put the Blues jersey on, but that's not happening.
I'm so relieved he's not here. Let's be honest.
It would be painful.
What about the grins on your faces, eh? Hey,
Well,
smiling.
who called this final at the start of the year, Millsy?
What's that, sorry?
Who called this final at the start of the year?
I can't remember who called it. I can't remember who called it at the very beginning of the year that these two teams would make it, but I tell you what, he's a pretty smart person, isn't he?
So you're obviously talking about yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Take all the credit. You're 100% right. 100% right.
Well, how good though? I mean, how good? You know, there's no doubting, guys, that we have got the two very best teams going into a final. It's going to be massive.
The Hurricanes
team
fans would
competition.
disagree, and the Hurricanes themselves, top of the table side, but ultimately when the biggest test came in front of them, they weren't able to get over it. So, look, I can't wait for Eden Park. Saturday night, there should be a big crowd. It should be a sellout because we're talking about a title that I think both of these teams are desperate to win.
Well, there was a big crowd in Taranaki Club Rugby over the weekend. We talked about some of these All Blacks going back to play rugby over the last couple of weeks. Beauden Barrett played for his beloved Coastal for the first time in 14 years.
It's always on the list to come back and play. It's just a matter of when. It's unique this year, come back from Japan. There's a bit of extra time. So the last time I played here was in 2010. I was playing for the under-20s against Inglewood. So it's just what I remember.
And Inglewood again.
Inglewood again.
Fantastic.
Yeah, playing with a couple of cousins this time. So it's good to reconnect with the grassroots and the coast, and I come here as often as I can.
Wonderful for club rugby. Look at all the kids that were surrounding Beauden Barrett. They tried to keep it a secret. He wasn't named on the team sheet on Thursday. They snuck it in and the whole town heard and turned up. How good is that?
So good. I mean, you know, given the fact, you know, he's back, he's early, he's got committed himself to going back, and given everything else that's gone on in terms of the administrational side of things, wonderful story. Wonderful to see him back.
It's healthy as well. Like, as a player, being in that professional environment, to actually go back to what the game's all about, you know, hit the club rooms afterwards, see the man of the match have to get up and, you know, take his punishment for being man of the match. It's like so bizarre, but, you know, having the crowd right there and, you know, it's really refreshing. I think he'll be much better for it. Good on him for going back and playing for his club side.
Well, it wasn't a full house at Eden Park over the weekend, but it should be a full house this weekend. If you want to secure your tickets, you are going to have to get in quick. Tickets go on sale for the final Tuesday, 9 a.m, so set your alarms. You can also register ahead of time on this website here, blues.flickit.co.nz. That will give you a bit of a head start, and all the very best. It will be the hottest ticket in town in the next week. If you're joining us on Sky Sport, we'll be there at the ground with a cast of thousands. That includes the former Chiefs captain and All Blacks captain Sam Cane will be alongside us as well, which will be a wonderful addition to the team, Jeff.
Looking forward to what he's got to say. I'm pretty sure it'll be one-sided. Let's be honest. He wants one team to win, let's be fair.
Yeah, but he's got JK on the other side of him, so
actually,
fair enough.
I mean, if you think about what Sam went through with his Chiefs team last year, because they came so very, very close, within one play of managing to win this title, a title that they cherish so dearly.
Well, think about the last 2 seasons. Both of these two teams have slipped up to the Crusaders in the 2 finals, 2022 and 2023.
Yeah,
Both of them.
Oh, absolutely, and that gives you massive motivation, but it equally it creates resolve. But both teams are in mentally the same headspace. So it'd be really interesting to hear what Sam Cane has to say, because he'll have a little bit of inside knowledge about the Chiefs and their preparation and what they've been up to for the week.
Can I ask you a question about them, both of you? The fact, is that why these two teams have made it this far? The fact of what they've been through, what it takes.
I
you
think
mentioned
so,
about
yeah.
Needing to lose to win one.
Yeah.
The Crusaders never learnt that lesson because they've never lost. But if you think about this, and for these two sides, and on the weekend in particular, when two teams came back at them, made a run at them late in the game. After half-time, the Brumbies did actually test the Blues for a good 10 to 15 minutes, Mills, Justin. Is this why we've got where we've got right now? Is the two teams who have the depth and of experience in playoff games to now know what it's going to take to win one?
Well, I think, yes. I equally think that they learnt in terms of what happened to them in a final and executed game plans in the semi-final that has got them to the big dance again. Like, you learn about opportunities not taken, about going into the game not starting well. The Hurricanes didn't start well for 2 weeks on the bounce, and it hurt them big time. The Chiefs, when they played the Crusaders, didn't start well in their game. Neither did the Blues when they played the Crusaders. So those teams, those are the major things you learn about. Like, if you're slightly off, then all of a sudden you can lose a final. So, yeah, mentally I think they've both learnt from it. Now they've got to apply it to a final. Whoever does that the best, because they're hard to separate, Mills.
Very tough.
It's hard to pick, but
it is, and I think, but also that is a factor. But also two contrasting sort of styles in terms of the way they've come about their season. The Blues very much a totally different game plan compared to what the Chiefs had. I think analysing, the Chiefs would have really they've done a really good job on saying, well, like you said, let's go out and start really fast. Try and get on top of the Hurricanes. How they sort of managed their scrum, because their set piece, the Hurricanes dominated them last time they played down at the Caketon, and so when you go into this, there's a lot in it, and I think that pressure side of it will definitely help, given they've both experienced it. But this is a massive week, because all that's going to be talked about are going to be these two teams.
Have the Chiefs played their final? They are battered and bruised. Can they go out and do what they did in Wellington and get up to that level and beyond with some of these players missing potentially, Jeff?
So was it a cakewalk at Eden Park for the Blues? If you think about what the Brumbies threw at them, and they have to play a certain way, the Blues at the moment, that's their game plan, is direct through the middle, and they themselves were beaten up at the end of it. Short turnaround, they only had a 6-day turnaround between games, and the nature of the way that they do play, they were battered and bruised themselves. So I'm not buying too much into this. Yes, there's a couple of significant injuries that the Chiefs are going to have to deal with, and whether or not a Sean Stevenson can recover in time with his hamstring. Losing Samasoni Tokiaho, huge for them. But ultimately, I think both teams at this time of the year are a bit banged up. The way the Blues play certainly means that it takes a bit of time to recover, and the Brumbies weren't soft. Yeah. When it came to it, they actually rolled up their sleeves and they made more tackles in that game than the Brumbies did. It was about 30 more tackles in that game. So they had to go to work. So I don't read too much into that. I think what Marshy's talking about up here, mentally and starting well, is going to be critical.
And what I want to add to that is, having spent a couple of days around the Chiefs, so they arrived on Friday with their supporters into the hotel that we were staying at, and the messaging after the game and the interviews that we did with them, including Clayton McMillan, and even the younger players like Wallace Satiti, loved the way that he said, yeah, I had a good game, thank you very much, it's very kind of you, but we've still got one more. The job's not done yet. Every single player reinforced that message. Saw them in the Corrie Lounge this morning on their way back to Auckland. Really well focused, eh? Like, they are in a good headspace. Battered and bruised, I don't think comes into it. They are mentally in a really good place to approach this final with everything they've got.
Can we talk about Wallace Satiti? Because he's the name on everyone's lips after the weekend, isn't he? There were countless All Blacks on the field. I don't know how many, maybe 15 or 20 All Blacks across two teams. And the 21-year-old non-All Black stood out. You played with his father, Mills. Yeah. Did you see this coming from this kid who's only debuted a couple of months ago?
I didn't see a performance like this coming. You always sort of knew. Clayton McMillan and they've always said they've seen a lot in this guy. Obviously, Liam Messham's got alongside him to really sort of mentor him through this. Even picking him to start, in these finals football. I mean, that's massive. But this is the potential they've seen. And when you've got guys like Finau, and also Jacobs on the other side, and you leave a guy like this sort of open. I mean, how ballsy is that from someone so skillful to be able to go, hey, yeah, you know what? I will take the the ball by the scruff of the horns and just really go for it. And that's where he was. His dad had similarities, really fast as well, played 6, Seymour played for the Hurricanes as well, his old team, and played 7s. So there is a bit of speed there as well, but certainly Wallace, a lot bigger in size, and it's obviously because the game's progressed in the way that it has professionally.
What I loved as well was the unity that they had as a back row.
Yeah.
Those clips here that we were showing, and 3 or 4 of them, right on his hip was Jacobson. For the pass back inside Taratama, it went Satiti, Jacobson, boom, offload Taratama, try. 2 of the clean-outs, Jacobson was right there. So he's complementing what his number 8 is doing, and that's what the balance of a back row is all about. Everybody working together in synergy.
And if I look at Satiti and I look at the single things that he has to do as a number 8, his core role. Jacobson then goes out, the guy who can play 6, 7 or 8, and he adapts his game to the role he needs to play. And he's done that for the Chiefs for years. A lot of the time for the All Blacks, it's off the bench, whereas what do you need me to do? I think the leadership from Jacobson, and he was bitterly disappointed to get a yellow card in this game. He felt as though it hurt his team. But he has been a leader. He's been a real leader, and they needed that. Sam Cane leaves. They lose Brad Weber. They needed someone to step up.
Gone.
Yeah, Retallick leaves, and this is the man for me who's led this group. And I think Wallace Satiti has built off that combination, those guys around him, and obviously it helps when you've got someone at 6, like Sammy Penny-Finau, who's scaring everybody because he's impacting the game. So to me, he was able to focus on his core role, his athleticism comes to the fore, and now he gets to go up against the guy who wants the number 8 jersey. We know Ardie Savea is in that conversation. We know how great he is, World Player of the Year. But Hoskins Sotutu is now standing in his way for Wallace Satiti, and he gets a chance at Eden Park to go, you know what, guess what, I should be in the same conversation you're in right now.
Yeah, and like he is, he's very level-headed, the way he sort of speaks after the game. That was a huge game for a 21-year-old, but I go back to your point, Marshy. I totally agree. I think that the Chiefs have had a really good run in terms of that mix, that sort of 3 back rowers. If you look at the Hurricanes, those guys, we've been talking about them all year. Same with the Blues. Whereas the mix in terms of what the Chiefs have been able to do, they've had Simon Parker in there. They've also had a bit of changing around, being able to rest sort of Jacobson at the same time. Now that back 3, who was so crucial to their sort of setup, are now starting to lift and sort of go to another level.
You mentioned the yellow card to Luke Jacobson. You never want to be the story as the referee, do you? And it sort of has been talked about a lot in the last 24 hours since that game. How do you make sure that's not the case in a final, that we're not talking about the referee and the TMO?
Well, that's not up to us. That's up to the TMO and the referees to get it right next weekend. Look, I think the Chiefs would feel really aggrieved. There was a few decisions that went against them. They've come out on the other side of it, Marshy Mills, where they've won. And here's one here. It was a little bit unfortunate, but it's a head-to-head contact. But ultimately, if you look at another contact in the game when TJ Perenara makes a tackle on Wallace Satiti, there's a head contact there. So all you're asking for is consistency. I think the great thing for this group is it didn't hurt the outcome of this game. And that's where they're fortunate. But they've now, well, let's just pray. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that hopefully next Sunday we're not talking about a significant moment in a game.
Yeah, and consistency is what you're after. Look, there's no doubt about the fact that if they're going to say head contact, then across the board to the letter of the law, if it's head contact, then you're going to have to penalise everyone in the same regard. That's all we're after. If they do that, whether we agree with it or not, they're consistent, everybody will be happy. But end of the day, like Jacobson, that late shot, it's a penalty. But when you look at the context of the game, like McKenzie got belted a couple of times just after he'd kicked the ball. I think one at Balin Sullivan absolutely hammered him. And nothing was said about it. And to a degree, that's late because he's already kicked the ball. It's gone off his foot. Jacobson was committed to that tackle too. So, yes, if they get the consistencies right, we'll all be happy. But if they don't, then there'll be plenty to complain about.
Mills is concerned. Oh, you're worried,
I said this a couple of weeks ago. I hope it does not come down to a refereeing decision. And last night, it almost did. It was potential.
TMO decision.
Well, exactly. But they've got to get it right. I mean, we don't want to be coming back the following week and go, oh, well, that was lost on that decision. And so they've got to be on the same page. And that's what it fears me. I'm worried that might happen. So hopefully...
Can I follow up on that, though? They've been really good this year.
I've
Like,
been-
we haven't had,
mate.
like, they've been
First time
fantastic.
we're
I know this is the
happy,
first
yeah.
time we've talked
Been
about
like-
it.
Yeah.
So it's the fact I don't want to be critical because it didn't affect the outcome of this game, or the right team didn't win. They
Didn't
won. The
suffer
Chiefs,
from it.
They didn't
Yeah.
suffer. The Chiefs were the best team on the night.
This is
But
the
what we're
first
saying
time
is
we've spoken about
let's just hope that we don't have any controversy. The fact, because remember last year, you know, Sam Cane, he gets the yellow card at the end of the game, and it was like, was it, wasn't it? Let's see. Hopefully we see 15 on 15 for as much of the game that we possibly can.
Yeah, and I don't want to see the Chiefs' attitude change.
No.
Like the physicality
No, yeah.
and the attitude they brought to that
Yeah.
contest, defensively, aggressively. They don't want to be worried about a ref or a TMO who gets assigned the game because it changes their mental approach. So they've got to go out there with that same mindset and attitude. So hopefully we just get consistency.
Do you think that does affect someone like Luke Jacobson, who's been carded and penalised in 2 massive games? Doesn't have an impact?
No, he just
Doesn't
plays
pull
that
back?
way. And so, Luke, wherever you are out there, mate, don't change. None of you. None of you. You're awesome.
Well, I tell you what, the Chiefs have got bigger issues than the referees coming into the game, because they've got serious problems at hooker right now. Samisoni Taukei'aho will not play in this game. He is in a moon boot. He's getting further scans, but it is an Achilles injury, and Clayton McMillan believes it won't just impact the Chiefs, but it'll have an impact on the All Blacks as well. We also saw Bradley Slater come off with an HIA. We believe that he actually damaged his MCL in his knee, so unsure whether or not Bradley Slater will play. He's got a question mark over him. What do you do if you're the Chiefs, and what do you do for the All Blacks if Samisoni isn't available either?
I mean, it's tough, isn't it?
There's a final coming up first.
I mean, well, obviously Thompson, you know, fits that role, but they've obviously got to find another a backup that goes on the bench, but also probably possibly a third one as well that helps them sort of warm up. Where do they go? I mean, club rugby.
The biggest game of the year.
Yeah, that's a big headache. That's a big headache.
Yeah, it is. And obviously they would have already been thinking about that post-game and doing their due diligence on how they fill that void and fill it in a manner that it doesn't cost them a final.
Yeah.
So knowing that coaching group and knowing what they're about, look, we've speculated names, haven't we? And we haven't come up with a great deal of answers, but what they are very good at is finding those names and finding those answers. Puts massive pressure on Thompson for sure, but he's a good player. He's been around Super Rugby for long enough. And if they need to, you know, it's always a good story, isn't it? Like, they'll probably make a movie out of it. They made one out of Beaver. Even though he's an established rugby player.
Yeah.
Well, he came out of, where was he?
White
Whitebaiting or
Whitebaiting
somewhere.
on the
He was like
river.
the fifth choice, you know?
It's not often there isn't one of the props who hasn't played hooker. You know, generally one of the props has had a chance. So maybe they're in the car park.
That's the throwing in,
the
though,
car
mate.
park,
Yeah.
the car park in the next morning, they've rounded everyone up. Righto, boys, here we go. Have a shot at it, hit a few targets, see what we can do.
We joke, but you mentioned we've been throwing around names. Who's that third choice for the All Blacks now? Who's that name?
Well, players that kind of would have been in the conversations, but in that if we suffer an injury, you know, who's that fourth choice hooker? Because you take three hookers, you take three halfbacks. That's a given. So, you know, you've got to speculate who's been in form and who's been playing well. And you know, there are some more established players out there, like the likes of Ricky Wikatelli, who's had a great season. Kirk Eklund's been around that environment before. Or do you then take a leap of faith and go, well, this is telling us we probably don't have the depth we thought we had. Do we need to bring through some of the under-20s players like George Bell, who have been in the system before, and catapult them because we know in the future they're going to be good? It just has to happen quicker? I don't know.
George Bell, is he in the conversation? Has he done enough? I like where you're talking about Ricky Riccatelli. Do you do an SOS to someone like Dane Coles?
Is that why you were smirking?
I'm laughing about it because
something here.
I don't know anything. What I'm saying to you, though, he was playing in Japan. He chose to continue to keep playing. At the end of the last World Cup, he was still a really effective, good international hooker. You're saying to yourself, do I want to have someone, you know, who could come in and be that backup? You've got how many test matches has he played going, you know what, I know it's not ideal, and you should love to blood a young guy. I know that would be hard on a Ricky Riccatelli, but that's thinking outside of the box.
I don't think
that. I'm not.
No.
But I'm just saying, is that a possibility? You start going, wow, you know, we still want to win test matches. We still want to be successful. I'm just throwing it out there, you know.
Okay,
Halsey would say yes, wouldn't he?
Oh, mate, he's probably already on the plane. Yeah, he would say yes. Don't worry about that.
Well, this whole conversation's come up because of the injuries at hooker for the Chiefs. Bradley Slater dragged his knee around the park for the good part of 60 minutes. He was on basically one leg, Mills, and if it is an MCL, that is tough.
I was absolutely amazed at the way that sort of he carried on on the game. MCL then ended up having a head knock. So that sort of forced me to go to Mills' moments as well. But this is the stuff I was talking about. I mean, he's out there. He's absolutely on one knee. He's hobbling around, trying to get himself, back up. Look at him there, getting back into the D system.
Good on ya.
Oh, there was one occasion where he was the only chaser, and he was screaming. And then thank goodness he wasn't in any scrums because we wouldn't be able to push. So on the back end of that, I thought for my Mills' moments this week that would sort of focus on people that guys that have played on through injuries, and the first one really doesn't need any introduction, and it's Wayne Buck Shelford. Now, we haven't got sort of footage of sort of what Wayne
Thank God.
he got knocked out in this game. And so as they were checking him in his game, after he got checked, obviously from concussion, he went and had a shower, and he noticed that his scrotum had been torn apart, obviously from the ruck. So
That's tough.
That is tough. Can you imagine that?
A back would have been like off straight away, like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, JK's spoken about it, and he said he would have fainted as a back. The next guy is Norm Hewitt. Now, he played in the 2000 NPC final down in Christchurch against Canterbury. And look at his arm there. It's in a cast because he played with it broken. And Wellington went on to win this final in 2000. So, big Norm Hewitt. Ooh. He deserves a place today, mate. He was a tough bugger too, wasn't he? Yeah.
Stuff, yep.
And of course, Richie McCaw. Now, this is, was talked about after the final, after the 2011 Rugby World Cup. The good thing about this is not even the players knew that he had a broken foot. We just thought that they were just resting Richie on the sidelines during trainings because he was the master.
Well, you thought they were giving him a breather.
Give him a breather, mate. You just play on the weekends. Don't worry about training. But he played on with a broken foot, and obviously went on to win the Rugby World Cup in 2011. Kieran Reid, another one. 2015. You watch him come down here heavily on his right foot. And apparently he broke something there. He broke a bone in his ankle there. They strapped him up, and the very next time he touched the ball, he decided, you know what, well, I'm just going to kick with my broken foot. Wasn't the best kick in the world, but the part that he done here was a lot better.
That's the first time I've ever seen that wrap around the ankle work.
Yeah.
You know how they do it all the time with guys that like 2 minutes later, I'm no good.
And technically, it probably
Oh.
didn't work.
No.
He was just tough.
Yeah, it was just tough. It was like $10 worth of tape, just like that.
Yeah.
Go on. Oh, yeah, and speaking of tough, well, we thought you had my good old mate over here, Justin Marshall. Look at that. Good stuff, mate. 5 points. Go have a rest.
Mate, you could have got under the
snapped
bar.
your
What are you
Achilles,
doing, mate?
mate.
You could have made the kick a bit easier.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bit untidy, isn't it? I don't think I should be walking in the footsteps of those people because I didn't play on. So it doesn't really count, does it?
It counts.
That counts, mate.
Yes,
Scored a try.
you scored the try, Marshy. But on that, what was your recovery like for your Achilles? Because Samasoni is potentially going to go through the same thing, isn't he?
Yeah, and TJ Perenara's just been through it as well. And Achilles can be really troublesome for front rowers in particular because of that force and pressure they're putting through it. It's not an easy recovery. I had operation. I was really fortunate. I pushed it hard and got back in 3.5 months, but it tends to be a 6 to 9 month injury. So, yeah, it's never easy. It's a hard one. You have obviously no weight bearer for quite a long time, and you're in a moon boot too. So, really, really sad for Samasoni. If that's what it is, a full rupture, it will require surgery and reattachment. But hopefully it's not that, and it's just a tear. Yeah.
Well, your one hasn't slowed you down on the squash court or the golf
Oh,
course.
absolutely. No. So there's a person that'll know about that later in the show.
Well, we've got him coming up
Have we?
next. All Blacks assistant coach Leon McDonald is just around the corner, a week out from them naming their 32-man squad. No No mai, hoki mai, welcome back into the breakdown, where we are just 7 days away from the first All Black squad of 2024, where we will have it live here on the breakdown special next Monday. And joining us to talk about it is the All Blacks assistant coach, Leon McDonald. Leon, thank you so much for your time on a Sunday. We do hope the roast has been good and that we didn't interrupt dinner. Tell us, we saw a fantastic semi-final in Wellington last night. Did any names get added to that 32-man list after the game?
Good evening, guys. Yeah, it was a fantastic game, wasn't it? It was awesome rugby. To be honest, no new names. I think what we saw is the guys that we've been tracking, played some fantastic rugby on the big stage, and that's what you want to see. The guys putting their hand up and performing, and it was a brutal game. It was physical, fast, a lot of ball movement. So I think all the selectors were pretty excited around what we saw last night.
Leon, great to have you on the show. Great to see you, mate. I've got a question around these responsibilities as selectors, because all of a sudden we've seen that there's a wider group. Normally there's 3 guys that have that responsibility. Now you've all got areas, and yours is the outside backs. But the first part of it is, I heard you had to put your first team down, and then all of a sudden the robust debate. How did you enjoy that process, given the fact that all of a sudden there's a lot more voices as you get closer to this first squad?
Yeah, it's been an interesting process. It's a little bit of a different setup than I've used in the past, but I felt it's working really well. It's meant that we've been able to really dig deep into our positions and even present back cases, I suppose, to the group and had that debate that you mentioned before. So it's been a really good process. Then the responsibility lies in your court to make sure you're getting it right. So. So I've been doing outside backs, tracked every outside back in the country really, and been following really closely. And obviously we're getting down to that point at the end of the season, and and the ability to have conversations right across the board, because we were watching a lot of rugby, so it's nice for us to get other opinions as well, which has been awesome.
Leon, I want to sort of talk about their selectors, because obviously you guys are selecting the team, but there's some other important selectors in us. So I kind of want to ask, have you settled on that number? Is that number 32? And sort of what does the split look like in terms of a team? Well, are you bringing in sort of guys to sort of cover injuries maybe too?
Yeah, 32 is sort of the number. There will be some injuries. We've seen injuries in the weekend. That's going to happen over the previous weeks. There's been some guys that have had some reasonably decent injuries, so that's going to change. But probably is it 18-14 split? Hopefully my maths works out well there. And hopefully, I think, for me, watching the final, it's more about watching who walks off at the end more than the result. I'm just glad the 2 best teams, I think, through the playoffs have deserved to make this final, and we're just looking forward to hopefully getting through injury-free.
Leon, it's your old nemesis here. He used to take a lot of money off you on the squash court and the golf course. I hope you've recovered from that. What I wanted to ask you about was technical, not in terms of selection, but it would influence selection. At what point do you guys start looking at game plan and the way you want to play? There's been no disguising the fact the All Blacks have struggled against outside in defence, particularly from the Northern Hemisphere teams, and try to find a way to beat that. Do you look at players that are conducive to doing that? Are they part of the mix?
100%, Marsha. Yeah, you're right. And no, you haven't won a lot of money off me, but definitely the style of game is probably the first thing that we set probably pre-Christmas, is around the way we wanted to play. So that was our pre-Christmas projects, I suppose, is what's the game that we want to play, what sort of identity and do we want to show on the field. And then from there, when we're really clear around the way we wanted to play, it's now let's get the right players that are going to allow us to play the game we want to play. So, and that's where the debate comes in, strong set piece versus mobility versus, whatever. So we're just making sure that it aligns up right back to the start in the way that we want to play the game, both on attack and defence.
Leon, because a number of the challenges this year, when you talk South Africa once again, you talk about England, you talk about France, Ireland once again, there are specific tests and challenges like Marsha you've talked about. Can I just quiz you a little bit on the outside backs then? Of course, we're sitting here and judging players at Super Rugby. Are there a few skill sets in particular that are a non-negotiable for the outside backs when it comes to playing at the next level compared to when you are playing at Super Rugby?
Yeah, definitely. the big counter-attacking spaces. You're not going to see that when playing England. We're going to see a lot of high balls, a lot of contested balls. You have to be strong in the air. You have to be strong in the contact area because they're going to try and counter ruck. So, that space that we've enjoyed watching some of our outside backs running back with a lot of space. They're not going to have that luxury, I don't think, against South Africa and England in particular. It's more of a grinding sort of mentality. Can you nail every high ball on the ground, making sure that there's no kick space where, positional play is really important. We don't want to give them easy kicks into the corners. So the little things like that, the positional plays becomes really important. The unseen stuff that people might not be able to see on the TV screens because the views won't allow them to see that. So, in terms of fullbacks and wings, positional play is really important. The ability to score tries out of nothing, like that little 5 metres to go with 2 defenders. Can we get home and get that little moment and score that try that we need to win the game? So, yeah, it becomes very technical in what we're looking at in terms of that next level. It is a little bit different than what we're seeing in Super Rugby.
Leon, we've had robust discussions on the show this year about fullbacks. How many fullbacks will you actually take, considering you have players that can go back there but play in other positions as well?
You need to give yourself cover, two in the position at least, so you could be injured throughout the weekend or later in the week and you need somebody ready to go. So, we'd definitely want at least 2 in every position to give us that cover.
Yeah, on it, I know you've just realised you've added to your sort of coaching staff as well with Flinney coming in, also David Hill. Great to see those guys. How will you divide that up? Are those guys, in terms of time on the field and coaching, or are they merely there sort of to support you guys?
Yeah, they won't be in with us full time. They're part-time coaches, sort of resource coaches will come in, specialists. They'll come in, most weeks. I think they'll spend a little bit of time, whether it's 1 day or 2 days. It will depend on the schedule and what we need. But Dave Hill's been with the All Blacks in that kicking capacity for quite a few years. Obviously, coaching with the Chiefs, he's already got a strong relationship with guys like Damien McKenzie and through his previous experience with the All Blacks with guys like Bowden Barrett, etc. So he's that continuity is really good for those guys because obviously they're kicking well and Corey Flynn's pretty new to the throwing role, but he's already touched base. He spent a lot of time in all the clubs working with these guys already, so he's already underway and he'll be in there. Obviously, it's an important part of the game is getting that line out throwing right. So great to have him on board as well.
Mate, we've asked you some reasonably serious questions, but I guess another side of it is it's exciting. You're a new coaching group, you've got a new side to work with. And one of Razor's strengths, obviously, is the culture that he creates. It's a hell of a challenging season, man. Like 15 test matches, playing top 5 teams, 6 teams in the world. But you guys must be looking forward to it and looking forward to getting your team together and getting started.
Yeah, we've been waiting for ages, Marshy. Like a lot of us, the last time I coached was New Zealand 15 after last year's Super season. So it's a long time ago. And we've watched so much rugby, we've travelled around, we've had so many Zoom meetings and face-to-face meetings around how we want to play the game, and we've spoken about players at length, and now the time's arriving. We're assembling this week with the non-finalists, or a group of non-finalists, before we name our squad to get underway. So it's really exciting, and what Razor's got in store for the team's really exciting. We're really motivated about that, and I suppose it's a little bit like the first day in any job. I think there's a little bit of nerves, and that's exciting as well. We're going to be, it's going to keep us on our toes. And England first up, 9 days from when we assemble till we play England, and England are coming over here with, high expectations and a lot of confidence. So, we've got to make sure we get that first 9 days absolutely right. So, yeah, it's really exciting. Marsha, you're dead right.
Just before we let you go, Leon, Blues or Chiefs?
Look, I think it's going to be a hell of a game. 2 really contrasting styles. I just think home advantage potentially is going to just swing the favour for me to the Blues. But I wouldn't write the Chiefs off. The Chiefs have been ridden off a fair bit already this year, and they've proven that they're capable. So it's going to be a hell of a game.
I think that's
You
your
sound
Blues
like
bias coming out.
He sounds like
That's your
Mills.
Blues
He sounds
bias.
exactly like Mills for the whole season.
Good answer, mate. Good answer.
Thank you so much, Leon. We really appreciate your time, and we cannot wait for that first squad next week.
Oh, awesome, guys. Cheers for having me.
Oh, just brilliant. Leon McDonald nailed his first All Black assistant interview on The Breakdown. Very honest, very open, and I feel like you learn a lot about that interview. No new names were written down on the sheet after the semi-final yesterday. They already have the players that they're looking at. 32 players, 18-14 split. Big question. What kind of style did they decide when they came together last year in November? What kind of style did they decide they want to play as an All Blacks group?
Well, I think a game really suited to our skill set and an evolution of a game plan that's going to suit the players that are going to be All Blacks in the next half a dozen years. And that's all revolved around, my mindset is against the struggles we've had, and I know I keep banging the drum, but it's a drum that needs to be banged because it hurts us, and it's been losing us test matches, is teams that suffocate us and they narrow the field. And there's space for us where we usually have space with our incredibly exciting outside backs when these guys played, who we could get the ball to and they would cut teams open. Now teams have recognised that the All Blacks' threats from centre out or even the wings and outsides, we can't allow them to get the ball out there because they'll hurt us. They've got devastating wingers, fullbacks, so they narrow the field. And we haven't been able to adapt. We've tried cross kicks, we've tried... So that's what they would have sat down at and said, right, we need the players that we know that can go through that and then eventually go around it and get those guys the ball more often. And then we'll hurt those teams.
Who are the players then that tick these boxes? Because you asked what they're looking for in their outside backs. Someone that can score 5 metres out, good in contact, good in the air. Who ticks these boxes?
We've got a lot of players that tick a lot of boxes, and that's the challenge.
Ticks all of them?
Well, that's the thing, and one of their best at the moment is not available in Will Jordan, so all of a sudden, and he's got versatility. I think in the outside backs, I mean, Amoni Nanawa was outstanding on the weekend, got a taste of All Black rugby, and then unfortunately got ruled out of the Rugby World Cup. We know what Mark Talia has shown at the international level, but once again, it's you look at some of these skill sets and you're going, are they good enough at those fundamentals to give this coaching team the confidence? If you think about some of the players they've had in the past, they've done a really good job for them in their environments. Even guys like a George Bridge, you think about the fundamentals that they've done really well, conditioned really well, good on the high ball, you know, their work rate's really high when they get space. So I think it's a matter of, to what Justin's talking about, is how are you going to use them? And I find it really difficult. Caleb Clark's shown some really positive signs. Sevu Reece has been really, really good. And then you've got to work out, well, who's actually playing fullback? Is it Bowden Barrett? Is he the starting fullback? Is it Love? Is it Ruben Love? I think the conversations are really hard, and I don't know how Scott Robertson's going to play at the international level, because what he had in terms of formula available to him, he had a team in squad mills that he had that could play Super Rugby, right? Now he's got all of these teams to select from, all of these players, not just guys he could contract. He can pick anyone he wants, Mills. I mean, and so now it's like, to your point, is he going, am I adjusting given the way Damian McKenzie plays, or am I asking him to play a certain role in a certain team? I'm fascinated by it all. Like I can't settle on my team because I'm not sure how he's going to play.
So I thought about it, and it's very obvious. It's players that are prepared when they see that situation developing in front of them as attackers and the defence are doing what they're doing. They've got the courage to pull the trigger, play without fear. That's a big thing that Scott Robertson has in his culture. And I'm sure that that's a part of the equation, to play without fear, not to be reckless.
Yep.
There's a difference, but to play without fear, have the courage for what you see, to trust your instincts and pull the trigger. The last thing you can do is hesitate. And I think he'll pick players that all have the ability to play with that confidence and are fearless.
I want to ask you about the fullbacks. Are they going to pick someone that has been there and done this before, or will they pick someone new? Or is it just a placeholder until Will Jordan gets back? So Bowden Barrett slips back there, or Damian McKenzie?
Well, this is the interesting part, like what you mentioned, Goldie, the fact that, you know, it's going to be the person that suits the style of football that they're going to actually play. The great thing about it, about these, what we've got, and the exciting part is we have got the skill set, right? All our backs have got the skill set. It's who, so it might not necessarily be the guy that's in good form, but who's going to tick all those boxes? Can they catch the high ball, you know, under pressure when the other teams are doing? Can they finish from 5 metres out? Can they adapt, Marshy? I think that's the biggest thing. That's the things that they'll be looking at to try and... So to answer your question...
None of you have picked who these players actually are. You're talking about the same things. None of you have mentioned who they are.
I don't actually know.
I think there's so many in the conversation right now.
Yeah. there are. There is enough there that we could probably name 2 to 3 in each position that would fulfil that requirement at the moment. But what they've got to look at is the ability to take that fear, that confidence to All Black level.
Yeah.
And they'll know who those players are. And I believe that they will not worry about a lack of experience and a lack of test matches. Why? They've got the clean slate now. It's time for them to start and put their stake in the ground, and they won't be going, oh, well, we can't take him because he's only played 1 test.
Yeah, I will say this. Just my last comment is the fact, the thing that I'm grappling with in my head is they've just got an All Black team. They're taking over an All Black team. And a lot of these guys would have played last year who got within 1 play. They had a kick at goal to win a Rugby World Cup, who would have seen the way and felt the way that they were playing. And they had some outstanding performances against Ireland. They had an outstanding performance, in the semi-final against Argentina. You start going, but how far away were we really from being the best team in the world, being good enough to win a Rugby World Cup? And that to me is, I'm fascinated by all of that, the leadership, who's going to step up, who's the combination, how different is it they're going to play? This is why it's exciting this year.
Just quickly, one final question. Do you find it interesting that the squad has already been picked? The finals don't matter. He said that. They're coming into camp. The players that have already been knocked out of Super Rugby are in camp this week. They've picked their squad. It's just whether or not there's players that get injured in the final. Those are the ones that will be replaced.
It's no surprise to me.
It's not a surprise.
No, they're always around and over the 90% mark by this stage of the season. If they're not, they've not done their homework, and they've based those selections on the players they know can fit their game plan, not what they're playing within their own franchise.
And the good thing about it is they're telling us that now, rather than saying they haven't.
Great.
And it's great that they're being
awesome
really
interview
open.
with Leon, eh?
Absolutely. Look at how much we've got to talk about after that interview. Usually we just move on and we don't react at all, but there was so much in that interview that we could literally keep talking for the next 10 minutes. But we can't, because we've got more to talk about. We're going to talk about who the halfbacks are for the All Blacks after the break with Marshy's expertise.
That's a massive part of you as a coach, isn't it? That connection with the players, that interaction with not just the players but their families. That was what made the Crusaders tick, wasn't it?
Yeah, the ability to bring everyone, you spend more time away from the field than you do at the field or training. So, you have to win off as well. And if you're going to win off, you have to bring people with you. And I mean, win's a term to say connect. You have to connect with them. They feel a part of it. When things get tough in the middle of the season, someone's had an injury, they're out of form, or they're not being picked. That partner, that family, that mum and dad who'd been with you at the start of the year and you've given them the vision for the group, they're a part of it just as much. That's the connection piece. So when it's going good, it's great. But when it's not and you're connected and you feel a part of it and you've got your own wider group, then you start to win off the field because they know what's required. They know what the week looks like. We know what we need from their husband, their partner, their son.
How important is it for success? Connections, all of what you're talking about, that off-the-field stuff. How valuable is that? Can you quantify it? How much is that contributing to the actual winning on the field?
Connections piece is just really care, and care is really to show that I've got time for you and bring people with you, make them feel they belong to something, and they'll give more.
Yeah, fantastic. That 3-part series coming up into the wonderful world of our new All Blacks coach, Scott Robertson. That is right after the breakdown, so you'll be able to watch it as soon as we finish here today. Make sure you do. Time now to talk All Black halfbacks. Who is going to be in his mix? We've got Justin Marshall here, so why not talk about it? 2 out of the 3 halfbacks obvious. If we take a look at the list of potential candidates, and is Cortez Ratima now, is he a must in this team?
Well, I think he's only reinforcing his credentials. And I'm like you, to be perfectly honest. I have 5 or 6 players in the mix, like 2 of them I'm probably not so convinced on, which you have is Falau Fakatava. I think he needs more time, another season game managing. This is his first year that he's been outside of Aaron Smith, but equally, Tofa Funaki, for example, come on leaps and bounds, but just needs more time in the shirt. So when you talk about Cortez Ratima, he's definitely got time under his belt in terms of he's been in the system for 3 years. He's been learning under Brad Weber, And this is his game yesterday. And in a big game, when he was up against TJ Perenara, who's been in great form and is an ultra competitor. So he's going to niggle him around the rucks. He's going to put him under pressure. His core role was really, really good. His kicking game was strong. His passing game was great. He's probably arguably the best supportive 9 in the country. He is in the right place at the right time so many times. He's ultra fit. He's got the confidence to be able to implement the game plan that the Chiefs want to play, and I don't think there's any debate that they are functioning well because of the way he plays. Now, I really liked, it's easy to look at the pass, the kick, yeah, and the inside runner and the line breaks and everything else, but this is what I've kind of got in my mind is what makes a really good 9, is the work rate. Check this out. So this is Ratama off the Satiti inset. Now, we've got him haloed. Now, it looks like Satiti's going to score. Ratapa, like other players, Ratama is not giving up. Now, what a core role for a scrum half is to get there as quickly as you can. There's cleaners there. He makes sure he secures the ball under pressure, offload it, 2 paces later, there's a try. Now, that may look like nothing to anybody else, to me, but that is effort. And that's what you need from your 9, not giving up. There's nobody else that's going to go there. Those forwards are all going to clean that ruck. That's their role. His role is to not give up, get there, make sure that under pressure and duress, you clear that ball and turn a line break like that into a try. That's growth for me, massive growth. Obviously, the other 2, Finlay Christie, TJ Perenara are in the mix, and Noah Hotham, again, is probably one of those massive potential, probably needed to be starting earlier in the Crusaders. End of the season was great, but maybe just needs another year of full season starts. Yeah. There you go. That's me done.
That was great analysis,
Awesome.
Margie. That was, I don't think we need to say
I've got a question.
No way.
Got a question.
I don't want to answer them.
It would have been easy for him as well, being a young, green sort of halfback off the back end of sort of Brad Weber last year, to gravitate to that ruck and pick and go.
Yes,
because there's an opportunity there, and that's. I mean, I agree with that. That's where he specialises. He understands the situation, knows there's a voice out there, but doesn't sort of go, "Hey, I'm going to take the limelight," and he gives the ball. That's an excellent decision.
I think we're in a fortunate position given the fact we lose Cam Roigard, which was really impactful straight away. As soon as he went down, I think everyone went, "Oh no." And then the fact that TJ Perenara came back into the fold and showed and did all the good things we know he can do, but he showed he's healthy. Yeah. And the fact his 10K runs on a Sunday and his 3K runs the morning of the game and all the things that show you he's in a great headspace, his health is good. He actually looks, I think, a little bit better than he did before the injury. Like all of a sudden he's got a bit of spark about his game. But it's also nice in the last 3 weeks to have seen Finlay Christie get back out there and improve every week. Got better every week. He looked a little bit rusty, so I look at all of a sudden, we've been fortunate after a significant injury, Mills, Justin, that we've had 2 guys that we go, you know what, we spent a lot of time investing in Finlay Christie. We've had someone come back from injury and look really, really good that we can trust. And now we've got a young guy like Cortez Ratama, who actually probably, he would have been battling for that 3rd spot, who's now going to get exposed reasonably quickly. So I'm really comfortable. I still think when I look at what we've lost in Aaron Smith, you can't replace that. Really difficult. It's now for someone else to step up and show real solidity and trust. And for me at the moment, it's Finlay Christie is the guy. I really like what I've seen.
He's your starter.
As my starter. I just think he's got to that point. I don't know about you guys, Justin. I mean, where do you see his game to be an All Black starter, not just the guy who's come off the bench?
Yeah, well, obviously, you'd have to have that balance. And I think the way that he plays, he's niggly, he's disruptive, he's energetic, he looks for opportunities, great distributor, really tough on defence, his kicking game's good. So he's really well balanced. He's been in the environment before, he's been in the mix, unfortunately had injuries. I certainly feel now that I've seen him come back that I've kind of changed my mindset. I think we need him there. A little bit of that is what I saw last night from TJ. Now, TJ won't mind me saying this because he'll probably know it himself. I just saw him get a little rattled and frustrated like he can get, and the referee was on his case and he felt there's some indiscretions at the breakdown, and you could see him not concentrating on the game and concentrating on other things around him, including the ref. And if that happens to him in a game and somebody gets under his skin, or he has a bit of one of those days where things are difficult for him, it can happen to me. The guy that comes off the bench probably doesn't need to be as green as someone like Cortez Ratama. It needs to be a Finlay Christie. So I think that balance, Perenara, Christie, and then Cortez Ratama, who deserves his opportunity. And the other 3, honestly, We are pretty blessed.
We're lucky.
We are
aren't
lucky.
we?
The
Considering
future is
we've
really
lost one of
bright in
the
that jersey.
greatest.
And with greatest respect, I throw those 3 names out there because any one of those guys deserve the opportunity. They played very, very well. And it's hard for me to try and say what they will pick, but I'm just trying to do it based on background and experience and obviously, where we're at in that position.
We're very, very lucky considering we've lost Cam Roigard, we've lost Aaron Smith. When you look at, we don't have the same depth at lock, do we? So very lucky at halfback. Let's turn our attention back to the grand final this weekend. What are you most looking forward to? Is it the Satiti-Satutu matchup? What is it? Is it the Ratima Christie? I mean, there's so much to look forward to about this one, isn't there?
I'm just looking forward to the banter through the week.
We don't even know who you're supporting yet, Mills. You've got to get off the fence.
He's in the banter because he knows he can't lose.
True.
You know you can't lose.
I'm looking
you
forward
pick
to the
both
banter
teams.
between both regions.
All I know is that you'll head to the winning changing room.
Hey,
that's what he's going to do. I guarantee you. Afterwards, you should be able to get in for an interview. Who are you picking, Marshy?
I'm going to say, just too impressed with the Chiefs in their last 2 games. I'm going to go Chiefs. Yeah.
Good on you, Marshy.
In a tough old fight.
You?
I'll decide during the week. Haven't seen the teams yet.
Okay.
I need to know who the reserve hooker is for the Chiefs.
Well, I know which side I'm on. I'm on the Chiefs. We will see you next week after the grand final, just before the All Blacks squad is named as well. Thanks for joining us today. Matua, good night.
Here we go. The final for Super Rugby Pacific 2024 is set. The Chiefs. It's been 11 years since their last title.
And the Chiefs go back to back.
The Blues searching for rugby dominance once again.
The Blues have won the Super 12 title.
The Blues versus the Chiefs.
Gets the pass away. Here it is. Yuan scores. Picked up by Satutu. Try.
The road to glory starts now.